What's the best pattern cutting book for beginners? Watch this video to find out why I love Designing Patterns by Hilary Campbell. Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm a professional pattern cutter and founder of the School of Pattern Cutting, where I create lots of drafting videos to help you make your own wardrobe. Today I'm going to look at one of my favorite pattern cutting book and tell you all about why I love it, what might be not so great about it, and why you should definitely try it out. Just before I move on, I'd just like to remind you of my Patreon page, where you can find lots of bonus drafting videos, special tips and tricks, full fashion projects, and behind the scenes diaries every month. So let's have a look at one of my favorite pattern cutting books. It's the book I learned to pattern cut with many years ago at college, and we also use it at university. And it's also the books I used when teaching in colleges. So it's a great book. It's not too thick. It has just all the basics you need as a beginner, but then it also gives you lots of styles to try out and shows you how lots of different techniques works. It lets you draft your own bodice and then explore how to do it. And I'm going to give you a few things why I absolutely love it. So I'm going to first of all flick through it quickly so you can see it. So it's a great book. You can see there's lots of different things, such as using a pattern, the bodice, collars, sleeves, skirts, jacket coats, and even underwear. And then it just takes you through measuring, drafting your block, lots of different styles. You can see how many different styles there are. So that's just a quick flick through. Now I'm just going to go you through its specifics, what I love most about it. What I think the best method to pattern cut, learn how to pattern cut, is still face-to-face or on a video, just because pattern cutting is all about the process. And it is really hard to compress all this process, all this knowledge into a book, but this book is pretty good at it. So what I love about it is they give you just enough information so you really can just make your own clothes, but they don't overwhelm you. I'm going to look at some more advanced books later on, but I've got one book where I have maybe 10 pages just on how to fit each specific part of your bodice block, which is great if you're really interested in it. But if you're just starting out and you maybe already have a garment which fits you, or you have a basic block, or you want to draft a basic block, and when you just want to play around and get some clothes to wear, you don't need to read 15 pages about how to fit everything. You just want to know how to add a shawl collar to something you already have maybe, or how to change your dart. So this is a great book because it doesn't overwhelm you. So it just gives you all the basics. And what I love about it, that they have like little details we all take for granted, but things like make sure both sides of your dart match. So they just like really, they have taken the essence of that's what's important about pattern cutting. They even show you how should a pattern look, how do you measure yourself, but you can see it's really concise. There isn't too much detail. And then you can draft your basic bodice block, which is great and quite straightforward. And then they just start giving you lots of different styles to try out. And I'm just going to show you one page quickly. What I love about it is that it's always got instructions and then it's got diagrams. And they've managed, because it's quite an old book from the 70s, and it's only got two colors. It's only got black, orange and white, so 3 colors. But they managed to really give you a lot of detail and things like dotted lines, straight lines, writing, highlights. So you always know what you're doing. And they always show you how the final garment will look like. So each page, you've got an image of what it will look like. So you can see there's 2 different ones here. Then you got very concise instructions. So it is really a book where it might be worth starting at the beginning and then building up your skills. Because that already assumes you have a certain understanding of how patterns work, but they give you lots of information how to open it. So I use a perfect combination of written and illustrations. So I think that's a really good thing about it, is how straightforward it is. And the other thing I really love about it is how many different styles it gives you to try out. So just on this page, you can see there's 4 styles already to try out. But even with colors, they basically got all the colors you ever wanted to do. And what I love about, they give you quite a complicated basic tailored color, but then they actually do like 6 points of what to consider and how you can adapt it. And I think that's really important for a beginner. So you don't just have a method, which gives you like your basic color, but it also says about what you can change. So for example, what sort of button wrap you want to do. So it's very much about, on my videos, I always talk you through how you can adapt it to your own designs. And I do some of it in here, and I think that's really important. Because this book is from the 70s, and some of the styles you probably wouldn't wear now. But if you know that method can actually be adapted to something which suits you, it suddenly becomes much more practical. So this is a really fantastic, concise book with just enough information, but not too little for a beginner. And there's 3 little niggles I have with this book, but I wouldn't stop me buying it. But I just thought I'd share them with you because I've used it now for 20 years, so I definitely love it. But we have to be honest with ourselves. And one thing, it's only available in centimeters as far as I know. So I'm a metrical girl. I've always worked in centimeters. But I know a lot of you like to use inches. And it's always quite confusing because of a lot of the tailoring and fashion sort of knowledge flips in between. So we always talk about inches and jeans, like we got a 30 waist or whatever. But then we mention centimeters. So if you are an inch person, then this book, you have to convert it into inches. But the good thing is a lot of the measurements is actually all about proportion. So if you want to draft a block, you will have to change all the measurements. But apart from button stands and stuff like that, there isn't actually that many measurements in there. So that makes it a lot easier. The second thing I find sometimes a bit annoying. So I've taught quite a lot with this book. I'm going to show you what I sometimes find a bit. It's to do this. Sometimes it's really fantastic. And it shows you how each point corresponds to a point on your diagram. So for example, 0 to 1, you can follow it all around. But with other styles, you have to sort of know already what is step 1. It's this doesn't really, I just haven't put the numbers underneath. So once you get used to the book, you can sort of tell that this must be number 1, this must be number 2. But you sort of, when you first start out, you have to sort of know what number 1, swing both darts into the neckline. You really have to sort of know what the darts is, which darts to swing. So I think that can be, if you're just starting out, it's just to pay attention that sometimes they assume you know which number corresponds to the image. And you always read it because it's a British book from left to right. But sometimes even knowing what darts are we talking about. So it assumes a bit of knowledge already. But it's still quite, it's very well written, very easy to understand. And the last thing, of course, this is a book written for colleges. So any space, they say quite openly, it's for anything from somebody doing just a short course to somebody doing a full degree. So everything is drafted of illustrations for sample size. So if I talk add 5 centimeters to make it A-line, if you're shorter or taller, you have a different figure from a sample size, you have to adapt it. But there's very few measurements. So I think you always have to be basically Most of it's proportion. If I use a measurement, you just have to say, oh, so this is for a very small mannequin. How do they actually look at me? Do I make my button stand a bit wider, or do I have to make my skirt longer or shorter? But that's what we do anyway, I think, when we design for ourselves. So these are my few niggles, very small, you can see. It still makes a great book. And this is my review of Designing Patterns by Hilary Campbell. And now this book is out of print, I believe. So you try to hunt out a second-hand copy if you want a hard copy like me, so you can have it with you at all times. But amazingly, at the moment, it's out of copyright. So you can download your own version from Google Books for free. So have a look at the description below. I've put a link in, and then you can just have a browse, decide whether you want it or not. If you like it, try to hunt out a hard copy. But perfect, free browse. What could be better? So this is why I love this book so much. It's a great one for beginners. Thousands and thousands of students have learned how to pattern cut like this. And it really gives you a really good foundation into drafting. So that's it for me. I'm going to do a whole series of pattern cutting book for different levels. So if there's anything specific you'd like to find out more, please let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe so you don't miss the next book review or drafting video. I'd love you to join me on my Patreon page, where I have lots of more in-depth drafting tutorials, full drafting and sewing guides for garments, and lots of tips and tricks and behind the scenes diary. I've put a link in the comments below, and that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and happy drafting.